Well, lately in the news, you've probably heard about the announcement from Pure Tracks saying that they are going to be providing over 50,000 songs available for download. Of course, you have to purchase them, but they're unlocked. That means they don't have any digital rights management on them. I've got Terry McBride from Nettwerk Records here to talk about that. His company represents such artists as Sarah McLachlan, Avril Lavigne, Bare Naked Ladies. The list goes on and on. So, pretty major announcement. Now you can get unlocked music. Is that something new?
It's not new. We've actually been doing it for a few years now, and eMusic's been doing it stateside and also in Europe, but it's obviously a very good step forward.
You've been doing it for a number of years?
Yeah, for about 3 years now.
I didn't really hear anything about that. They made it sound like they just invented that.
That's great. I mean, it gets press, it gets news, it gets people hopefully motivated to go check out their site, but bottom line is it's not news to us.
So, I mean, you represent some pretty major artists, like Sarah McLachlan, for example. With all this unlocked music, aren't you guys afraid that everyone's just going to download the music for free and not buy any songs?
That's happening anyways.
Well, I guess it is.
You know, about...
But I mean, are you losing money?
No. You must think about 10% of the business is the legal side of the business. The other 90% is your LimeWire and BitTorrent. So all it does is it begins to level the playing field and allows the legal services to compete with the, quote, free services.
But why are most of the major record labels apprehensive, or really they don't want to do this whatsoever? They don't want to unlock their music. They say it's just going to kill the business.
I think they're fearful, but they've been fearful for a number of years now, and they've been using litigation and in many cases legislation to try and change the behavior of the consumer. But you can't either legislate or litigate behavior. What you've got to learn to do is to market it, promote to it, and ultimately monetize it.
So what kind of percentage then from one of these major artists is the actual music sales?
As far as the brand and the overall brand revenue, I would say the intellectual property represents anywhere from 10 to 25% maximum of their revenue stream.
So the music's almost like advertising for their brand, really?
Well, the music's part of the brand. It's obviously the initial part, the part that gets everything going, but it's still only part of it.
Do you see a day when all music will be unlocked? I mean, these guys, these record labels seem pretty adamant that they're never going to do it.
They're going to have to unlock it, and I see that beginning to happen towards the end of this year. They have to unlock it because right now in the digital space, we only have specialty retail, such as iTunes and Rhapsody and Pure Tracks and so on. In the physical world, we have those same players, but we also have Best Buy and Walmart and Costco. So,
but people would say, you're talking about big box stores in the real world, people would say that iTunes is a big box online store.
They are a specialty retail account. What we need to get into the digital space is the eBays, the Googles, the Amazons, in a major way that have tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of consumers who shop at those spaces, who don't go over to iTunes, but will, if it was there in front of them, they would actually purchase it.
And you see that day coming one day?
I see it coming this year. I see the beginning it's going to happen beginning this year, simply because the physical marketplace is now completely disintegrating. Versus the usual 3 to 5% downtick, I think we're going to see about a 10% downtick this year upon gross margins, which will force them to finally capitulate, to get rid of the DRM locking mechanisms, and actually allow the big boxes to come into the digital space. That's
interesting. Digital rights management in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the locking mechanism, I think that's kind of the evil part that a lot of people think of.
DRM gets a bad rap. I mean, it's digital rights management. It has nothing to do with locking. It's the locking mechanisms that they put within it that are the problem. The actual watermarking and the tracking of the songs is perfectly fine. It's locking it down and creating interloping issues, which is the major issue.
Well, thanks for joining us today.
You're more than welcome.
It's Terry McBride from Nettwerk Records. You can find out more about him and his different music up at nettwerkrecords.com.